Hey everyone, welcome to episode 16 with Garry Rosser from the Scallop Shell in Bath. It was so good to catch up with Garry about his journey, his current projects and the industry as a whole. If you haven't been yet, then I suggest you do. Garry has been a good customer and a good friend of mine for some time and is always pushing to learn but also to teach. As always, thank you very much for subscribing to the Ceres podcast. If you could leave a review, please do. And if you have any mates, please tell them about it too. Thank you. Garry, thank you for your time.
That's okay, no problem.
And for those that don't know, you are Garry Rosser from the Scallop Shell in Bath.
Always make time for you, still.
Oh, well, thank you, mate. You're so nice. Well, you just couldn't say no. So, Garry, let's start right off at the beginning. Did you ever think, you was going to be a chef as a kid? What sort of led you into being a chef?
I sort of knew when I was about 14 years old. I remember we had a careers day at the school, and they normal stuff. They come in, they start talking about careers. You do mock interviews and all that sort of stuff. But I just something in my head said to me, I want to cook. I want to become a chef. And to be honest, in those days, it was quite easy to become a chef because of the hours. Learning from now, because of the hours, because of the conditions, because of the fact you're generally working whenever everyone else is socialising. Yeah. It wasn't a job that was hard to come by, and to be honest, I wasn't very good at school. Yeah. I didn't really like school, if I'm honest with you, and so I used to muck around quite a lot, and I used to get sent out of lessons. So, but when I went into chefing, it was because I knew right from day one I really enjoyed it.
So you're a bit of a creative type.
Bloody hell. To be honest, no. I mean, if you asked me to draw a picture or do a painting, it'd be like that first painting you used to do when you were 3 years old. I mean, that's how I still draw houses, all squares and that. But
not creative in that respect, but even dealing with food is probably sort of creativity in its own way, isn't it?
I always find it weird because if you imagine, if like I said, if you asked me to draw a picture, that's the picture it will be. It'd be like a 3-year-old's drawing. But whenever I put something on the plate, it just fell. It just happened. Okay. And it just made me tingle inside you. It makes you tingle. Yeah. So maybe an artist on a plate, but definitely not an artist. Okay. I'm drawing.
So when did you sort of then? What college did you go to?
So basically, I knew I was going to be a chef. Yeah. I wrote a letter. Yeah. Which is quite funny because, like I said, I didn't try very hard at school, so I didn't know what commas were, I didn't know where the full stops went or anything like that. Spelling was atrocious because we didn't have Google then, we didn't have spell checker or anything like that. So the head chef at that point, who was to become my good friend of mine, he still did remind me very clearly of that letter I sent. It made no sense whatsoever. Yeah. But anyway, I applied for the job. And naturally, like I said, you could pretty much walk in there, and so I got my first job as a chef there. But I went on the youth training scheme. Some of you remember those schemes, some of you won't. But that was basically where you went to college 2 days a week, and then you would do the rest of your days at a placement of work, and so you were full time, and it was a government backed scheme, and you used to get in those days was £27.50. Wow. So not a lot of money in those days, but through that. I did my training at Bath College, and that was good. It was basic, but it was the classical cooking. It was the heart of cookery, and you need to know the heart. You need to know where these classic dishes come from. You need to know about Espanol, bechamels, veloutés. Because that is the basis of some of our cooking. Stocks, sauces, they're the basis of cooking, really.
So if you get those basics right, then essentially you're sort of set, aren't you, really?
Well, they're set, and the college does give you the basics, but you know, naturally, like any industry, any business, then you know, new techniques come out, new ways of doing things come out.
Yeah.
So you never forget the heart, but you expand out from the heart. Almost call it like an octopus, really.
Yeah, of course.
You know, you got the body, and then all these arms come out, and it helps you to develop different dishes and different flavours.
So any sort of notable jobs after that? You know, so you worked for that chap. How long did you work for him for?
To be honest, I worked for him 8 years, and the reason being really was I knew, you know, chefing was always going to be part of me, and when I was in the kitchen I became a different person. I loved it. You know, hard days, you know, 18-hour days. You go to work in the dark, you come home in the dark, sometimes no breaks. You know, it was really tough, but every day when you're in the kitchen it felt like, you know, an 18-hour day felt like a 2-hour day.
It's not for the faint-hearted, is it?
No, and that's why there's always a job in it.
Yeah.
And actually, if you think about it, through our lifespan, we've probably gone through 3-4 recessions now. There was always a job there for me there, because you know, that industry did attract very little people.
Yeah.
So there was always a job there. And if you were good, you always naturally, obviously,
always found work.
Yeah, absolutely, or secured your job. You know, I met my wife when we were 16, or actually 15, and I knew her. Actually, we used to be next door neighbours when we were 7 years old, and but we had a child very early. So we had a child by the time I was 17.
Wow.
And that was tough, to be honest. That was really, really tough. And but what it did was it meant that I had to naturally choose my work carefully.
Yeah.
And you know, and because I needed to spend time with Lisa, and I needed to spend time with our new baby and everything like that. So so that did restrict me a little bit. And so I tended to stay in restaurants longer periods of time, because it was comfortable. It helped us.
Security.
Absolutely. And then because I didn't want to be away from my family, I tended to stay much more local to where we lived effectively. So I mainly did all my restaurant training around the Bath and Bristol area, really.
So see, in some ways, although that could be seen as a negative, in some ways it's a positive, because it allowed you to sort of get that out of the way early, and now you're quite young and you've got your own restaurant in some ways.
Well, I think there's probably two answers there, really. I mean, in a positive way, the two positive ways of that was traditionally in the chefing world, you would normally spend at least 12 months in a placement or a place of work, because that's what gave you the CV.
Yeah.
But most people would move on within a year or 2 years, because in those days the CVs were built up how many places you work, because the story there was the more places you work, the more experience you pick up.
I see.
Actually, for me, thinking about it now and how things change, that was actually, for me, that's wrong. By working 8 years, it showed commitment, it showed dedication, it showed caring, it showed how much I enjoyed my work, but it showed how much I was passionate about that restaurant, and also became an asset to that restaurant. I was
going to say, to some degree, you're a stable hand. You're not just trying to move up the ladder as such, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the downside was when I did eventually move from that restaurant, I felt because of the passion. I'm not saying I was good, but I knew I could give 150% every day.
Of course.
But I left that restaurant because I was scared that I only knew what that restaurant had to offer.
I see.
And then I went to a really good restaurant, that was a good restaurant I worked in, but then I went to a free rosette restaurant.
Oh, okay.
And that had a very renowned owner who's still a very good friend today, and is actually an advisor for me, which helps me a lot. But he was free rosettes, and he was actually the first chef ever, British chef ever, to get a Michelin star.
Oh, wow.
So that was quite daunting. You can imagine that was quite daunting for me. And but that was a great turning point in my life, really, for the chefing, because when I went there, again, through passion, through always believing to give 150% commitment whenever you're in work, I believe I became an asset there. and that's where I started to also find myself, because then I did actually start to really believe in myself, and I did very well there. And then after that, I only spent 2 years there because I really wanted to become a head chef at that point.
I see.
And that's when I moved on and took my first head chef's position, because I knew who's still a very good friend of mine, the head chef at the Olive Tree, was probably there for more long term. But financially, I wanted to move on, but I also wanted to start getting some more financial gains.
Yeah.
The positive of the other part, I won't deny, I couldn't deny that having a child at 17 is easy, because it's not. But then maybe yourself, maybe it's hard at 30. But
sorry, it is hard.
It is.
Sorry, it is hard.
Okay. Yeah. I suppose the hardest thing for me, it wasn't so much, but obviously financially, you're not as stable as you might be in your 30s. That's the real hard thing of that, really. But I think the lovely thing about it now, I never stopped believing. And I think even at 17-year-old, just because you have a baby at 17-year-old, doesn't mean your life ruined. You can still have the opportunity, and you can still become what you want. You just have to believe in yourself and keep believing and keep believing and keep believing. And if we talk about the positive part of that now, I am knocking on a little bit now. I am 48 years old.
Yeah.
But my daughter now is 30. My son is 26 and also in the business with us. And and I have a granddaughter who's 11.
Wow, congrats.
And we go on holiday together. I jump in the pool. We fight together. I feel like I'm still 20 years old.
Yeah.
But obviously in the body I'm not. But I feel like it.
So in some ways, did you see it as like a kick up the bum? At the time, determined you've got to go and provide, or did you not think of it like that at the time? How was it for you?
No, to be honest, I didn't think of it like that. I just kept believing.
Yeah.
I found something. I believe that everybody will be good at least one thing.
Yeah.
And when they find what they're good at, they will want to excel. And I felt very privileged and lucky that I found that. I believed I found it when I was 14, because I knew I wanted to be a chef. But when the first day I got into that kitchen, I knew I had found what I wanted to do, and I knew that was the one thing that I was good at. And then it was just trying to excel. It was just trying to be the best I could be every single day.
So where did you go after? Where was your first head chef's jobs then?
So my first head chef, my first head chef's job was at the Beaujolais in Bath. So again, another local restaurant. There's a French bistro. To be honest, if I'm being honest, it probably wasn't the right place for me. Having an English head chef in a French-dominated restaurant was probably not the best for me, and probably not the easiest to work in. But what I would say is, I actually still believe to this day that's where I did my best cooking.
Yeah.
And because that's when I was raw. That's when I was hungry. That was my first head job.
Trying to prove yourself to some degree.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I did a good job. I did a really good job there, and I learned a lot there as well. I learned the French. When you work for a French owner, you waste nothing.
All right.
You make something from everything, and to be honest, he used to come and check the bins and everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. He used to check all the bins, and so I learned that because we're always generally we're always looking for using the prime bits and and the thing, and everything that we don't think is good enough goes in the bin. But
do you not think that that's a shame that everyone today just wants the prime bits, no way. They're buying the prime, there's no waste, there's no secondary uses, and it's sort of like, whereas if you're being frugal and smart, there is extra things to do out of a product, isn't there?
Well, I think if you don't use it, then you're almost a criminal, because you're chucking away something that is still very, very good. You just become lazy.
Yeah.
Or we're so blessed now with the internet. We're so blessed with recipes. You can Google anything now, and I think anybody who has got an ingredient there just because it's not a prime ingredient, that you can do something with it. And if you're chucking it away, that's for me, that's just complete madness.
Well, it's so true, because I think years ago, how many years ago? Probably 6 years ago, I remember just before we brought out our fish cake mix, I went to a shop and they were literally trimming loads of cod and haddock, loads, no skin on it. It was just the belly area, the J cut, and they were just trimming it and putting it in the bin. And I thought to myself, what the hell are they doing? And I mean, we're talking loads. In one fish cutting session, there must have been about 12 kilos of trimmings. And I said to those guys, what are you doing with that? And they were like, oh, it's going to go in the bin. And I was like, well, you can make something out of that. And that's what made me then go to the fish cake mix, one of the reasons. And you know, and I said that they use the product now and they make fish cakes. They were like, can't believe we used to throw this away. And it was like, but there's so many restaurants that literally just do that. You know, they're not alone. There's so many people that do that. It's such a shame.
It is a shame. And to be honest with you, I went somewhere a couple of months ago, and they were doing exactly the same.
Oh, really?
And they said sometimes we don't.
Oh, really?
And well, I'm sure we're going to talk about fish and chips and cod soon, but we all know cod prices are going up. Yeah,
massively.
And you know, it is in today's, well, any time really, but today is just absolute madness, because you know, it's so hard, especially in takeaways. You're trying to make your margins, and you should look at that as a criminal offence now if you're chucking that away.
I think in my mind, I think it's got to be part of the ethos all the time. I think because then you win when prices are stable and you win when prices go high, or at least not so much you win when prices go high, but you don't lose when prices go high. So it always needs to be part of your ethos if you're making, you know, to use those secondary products to get extra value out of them. You know, so if you're filleting your own fish and the bones are worth something and the heads are worth something, make some fish stock. You know, I know that you've got to boil it, but again, you know, value is made out of what you do on site, isn't it? So, you know, it's such a shame for people that just... But that French guy, or all French guys essentially, or French owners, they've nailed it, haven't they?
Absolutely. And I learned a lot. It wasn't the right place for me. I knew that. I knew, you know, after about 9 months, it wasn't the right place for me.
And where did you go after that then?
Well, then I went to be honest, I went to a restaurant called The Glass Boat in Bristol.
Okay.
And I didn't. No, I apologise. Actually, I didn't. Right. Actually, I went to a restaurant in Bristol called the Blue Goose.
Okay.
And that was a neighbourhood restaurant. And I went there, and the chef there was too young. He was a very young guy, chef in there, and he hadn't, you know, naturally had no experience in what he was doing, and the menu was wrong. Everything was wrong there, really. So I went in there. Very nice owner. And I went in there and I sorted that out, recreated the menu, started cooking some what I would call classic home dishes that families would enjoy and, you know, neighbourhoods would enjoy, and completely turned that restaurant around. From, you know, I remember they were doing around, when I first went in, we were doing about 10, 15 covers a night, maybe 25, 30 on a Saturday, and then in the end we were averaging 60, 70 on a weekday, and we were averaging around about 120 or 130 on a Friday and Saturday. Yeah,
that's very good numbers for not residential, a neighbourhood restaurant, isn't it?
Well, I mean, again, you look at the positives, and you should always look around at the positives of what's around you, and I look at the positives and go, well, look, there's chimney pots.
Yeah.
So look, you know, we can't drink and drive. So if we go to a nice restaurant in the city, then the chances are we're going to have to get a taxi.
Yeah.
Or we don't drink. Which is fine if you don't drink, but if you drink, you know, you don't want to sit there all night with an orange juice. So you look at the positives, and so if I could create that restaurant, that city restaurant environment, in a neighbourhood area, then you can walk to the restaurant and walk home. Yeah. So you save money anyway.
Yeah, of course.
So we worked on that theory and brought the price down, because you're not in the city, so therefore your rent's not so high. So we didn't need to be as expensive as those city centre restaurants, and you just play to your advantages, really. So
was that instrumental in you learning about, like, you know, value for money and being like quite sharp on pricing?
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, from my Olitry days, I remember the owner there at that point invested a huge amount of money in a system that learned us about gross profits and buy-in, etc. And so I learned very, very well there. And I think as a head chef, I pride myself on there's 50%. There's two jobs in a head chef. You have to create great food, and you have to manage your team, but you're the middleman.
Yeah.
And actually, you're also there to make the business work.
Yeah.
And you're there to make the owner happy. So you have two sides. It's almost like a football manager. Mm-hmm. If you think he's got to keep the chairman happy, but he has to keep his players happy.
Of course.
And you can only do that by winning.
So it's a bit of a balancing act.
It's a business at the end of the day, and you can't create. I've got friends who were one who's 2 Michelin star, but it didn't work for him because his food was unbelievable, but he didn't hit the margins.
No,
he couldn't hit the margins, so therefore the business didn't make it in reality.
So at that level, I suppose it's difficult. Well, no, I suppose locality really makes a big difference. Like, what sort of customer base you're pulling in, because if you're in an area that's not going to support that, it's just not going to work.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what I say. You look around. You have to look around. Look around and see where you are and what is possible. And also, I think you just hit it before when we talked about use up. In those days. 2 Michelin stars didn't use up.
No.
Do you see what I mean? They were always looking for prime, and that's why other restaurants, because they would look at the 2 and 3 star Michelins, and then they thought they didn't need to use up.
Yeah.
So there's a great learning curve.
When you look at some restaurants now at that level, I think it's gone completely the other way. So not only are they very frugal, but they're also growing some things on their own. They've got gardens and so on. So I think that's probably gone the complete other way as well, hasn't it? Really.
Well, I think the whole over the last 20, 30 years, food and people's expectations, people's lives have changed. Now the food scene has changed. In my day, I don't think when I was a kid I ever went to a restaurant. And then even in the early years of me growing up, in my early years of kitchen, me and Lisa would only ever go to a restaurant really if it was a special occasion. I think people now go to restaurants as a social.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I think the food, in those days, you either went, if you wanted casual food, you go to a pub.
Yeah.
And if you wanted restaurant food, you would go to a restaurant. Yeah. But there's so much casual dining now. There's so much choice.
There's blurred lines
Society's changed completely for the better.
Massively blurred lines now. Like you go to a restaurant, go to a pub, and you get really nice food. And you go to a restaurant, you get nice food. And I think the bar has really been lowered, and I think even when I was younger, I'm still young, but when I was younger, I mean, we didn't go to restaurants all the time. No. And you're right. And I think some people probably go to a restaurant twice a week. And if they're not going to a restaurant twice a week, they're getting takeaway twice a week. So,
absolutely.
So I think that the market has really exploded. But the prices have come down. It has become a lot more accessible to go to a restaurant. Yeah, especially nice restaurants. It's also less formal. You don't have to wear a shirt and a tie anymore. Which you'll never see me doing. But so I think it is very different. So,
I think it's great because those restaurants are still there.
Yeah.
And that's brilliant. But that informal eating now, I remember, even in 1986 when I started, I remember the chicken dish we did on the menu was $11.95.
Wow.
So if you think that was 1986, £11.95 on the menu then, so you could see why it was a luxury.
What's that, 20 quid-ish now, roughly?
Well, no, because if you look now, you can go and get a chicken.
No, I mean, what that 11 quid is worth now. I mean, in
reality, probably even more. I suppose in '86 that might be even worth 25, 30 now.
Yeah.
But in reality, if you look at it, you could still go to a casual restaurant now, and you'll probably still get a chicken dish for 12, 13 quid.
I know it's not fine dining. I mean, you go to Nando's, it costs you 15 quid or whatever. You can go to a really nice restaurant, it might be 30 quid a head. And even what's perceived as fine dining has come down in price. I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So tell me about what happened next. Where did you go next, just briefly?
Well, then, to be honest, at that point in my life, I had a little rethink. I was on the glass boat, head chef, two A rosettes, really nice restaurant, doing really, really well there. But that was at a time then really when it was probably really taken over my life, and I didn't have so much time for the family, and because of traveling, etc. And so I just woke up one morning and thought, this is madness. This is madness, Garry. You got lots of restaurants in Bath. There's probably 4 or 5 that I really would like to work in or could work in. The rest of them I wasn't really interested, but there's definitely 4 or 5 there that would have been somewhere I'd like to work. And I just said to myself, why are you travelling to Bristol every day in that traffic, 17 hours days, coming home, getting up and doing it again the next day. You're absolutely mad. So I made the decision to come back to Bath and try and see what the possibilities were working in one of those 5 restaurants that I really thought I would like to work in. And quite ironically, probably my number one choice was actually looking for a head chef. A friend of mine, a friend of one of my old head chefs, was a very good friend of the owner, and so we basically met up for a beer. And that was when I started to come back to Bath, really.
Oh, brilliant. Next, that sounds really good. And so what I've got down here on my notes that you also worked for Fishworks, and was that the job that you had just before you started Scallop Shell?
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
Yes and no. So basically I came back to Bath, and so one of the restaurants that I really would have loved to work in was the seafood cafe. It's called the Seafood Cafe, and that was making really big news in Bath. It was a little 30 cover restaurant, had a fishmongers down below, and but it was booked 3, 4, 5 months in advance. Wow. You couldn't get in there. And that was owned by a guy at that point called Mitch Tonks, who I knew of, but I didn't really. But I'd never spoken to Mitch. But my old head chef Matt Price, who was the head chef at the Olive Tree, he introduced me to Mitch. Told Mitch that I was looking for a head chef job in Bath, and Mitch phoned me and said, "Do you want to meet?" So we met for a beer in the Green Tree.
Oh, so this was the guy. This
was the guy actually. So we met for a beer in the Green Tree, and instantly straight away just meeting Mitch. I thought, wow, I just got a great feel on that. And he told me about the restaurant, what he was trying to do, what he was doing, and he, at that point as well, I felt he was so advanced. He was so knowledgeable, so advanced, and so different to anyone I've met in the restaurant industry, because we were all so focused. Chefs were so focused, and to be honest, I suppose there was, a little bit of arrogance in there. Yeah. But this was a guy who'd never been a chef.
Okay.
And this was a guy who, for me, was looking at the cooking from a customer's point of view.
Okay.
And I found that very interesting. And I knew, literally within 5 minutes, I wanted to work with this guy. I wanted to learn from this guy. I wanted to understand everything about him.
Oh, really?
So I took the job.
And how long did you work there?
Well, in the end, I ended up working 8 years for Mitch. And but when I first went there, I got the job, and then a day before I was due to start, he phoned me and said, "Garry, I'm really sorry, the job's not available anymore." And I was like, "Oh." But he said, "Look, would you come and be the fishmonger and do fishmongering for 6 months or something like that, but the job will come available, and as soon as it comes available, you're the head chef." Because in reality, Mitch was a very nice guy, and they had a problem with the head chef at that point. But Mitch being so nice, he just couldn't let him go. So I actually started as a fishmonger. And that was quite interesting, because I used to be a fishmonger before I left school. In some of you might remember a supermarket chain called Gateway. I was a fishmonger there. So actually I became a fishmonger for 6 months back with Mitch, and then eventually I went into the kitchen as a head chef, and then we went on. What I knew right from day one was I thought I knew a lot about fish. And I thought I knew a lot about cooking fish, and I thought I knew loads. And actually, from day one, I realised how little I knew. I also learnt how little I knew about our shores and how rich the UK coastline was in fish and shellfish, and all these amazing type of species, and all this beautiful shellfish that had delicate, sweet flavours that I'd never seen or never experienced before. I remember seeing on the second day the delivery of crabs and lobsters. I'd never cooked a crab before in my life, because for me, having crab on the menu was opening a packet.
No, it's true.
And I thought that's what it was. So not only did I have to learn how to cook the crabs, but then I had to learn how to pick them. And then I learned how delicate and sweet and how beautiful this crab meat was compared to the packet crab meat. and it just opened up a complete world. And excuse the pun, but I was absolutely hooked. And I knew this now had become my life, and this now became something that I really was going to be passionate and inspired by every single day. So
that's sort of how you ended up in the niche then.
Yeah, absolutely, in the niche, and that's when I knew I wanted to specialise
in seafood and fish.
And also, like, to be honest, this is how I knew I wanted to give back. I just knew everything. Fish, I knew was to become my way forward. I knew it.
And how long was it before that turned into the Fishworks, or did that never turn into Fishworks, that one?
Yeah,
did his plan evolve a little bit then?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mitch is a very ambitious guy.
Yeah.
A really ambitious guy, and the guy doesn't sleep, and he doesn't stop. In fact, the one thing I used to find really frustrating with Mitch is I could never catch him, and I always wanted to catch. I always wanted to be better than the person above me, but I couldn't catch him. Whenever I thought I was catching him, he revolved on. He had gone on to another level. So that's what I found frustrating about him.
In some respects, that's not a bad way of pushing a team, is it? In some respects.
Well, hopefully that's a complimentary.
Yeah, I think it is,
But he was so inspirational, and 5 minutes in his presence, he would have you buzzing. He would, you would feel the adrenaline.
So he was a great leader as well then.
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah. He was a great guy.
He's still going.
Well, absolutely. You can see how he's developing now.
Yeah.
But basically, the Seafood Cafe was the first one. And then Mitch wanted to evolve on. I think they floated on the stock market. It became a PLC. Through that, they opened up 2 more restaurants. Then he got his first break in London. He opened 2 restaurants in London. What was really interesting about that, actually, was everybody involved in those 5 restaurants at that point then, which obviously were now called Fishworks, had become a brand. All those people involved in that have been promoted internally. So some of the head chefs had come up through the ranks of chefing, and now they were one of them actually, who's a very, very good chef now, even in London. He started as a KP. So we'd all come through. Some of us started the head chefs, but some of them had come up from commis chefs, or some of them had even come up from KPs and become the chefs. And so we had created this little family, and we all had total respect for each other, but also we all had a dream. Yeah. And we all followed Mitch's passion, etc. So it was a beautiful time. And then we won best new restaurant in London at the London Awards, which was amazing because obviously people like Raymond Blanc. The London Awards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely, and so it was a massive thing for us. And then I think they floated again. They floated on OFX first, and then they floated on AIM, and then I think unfortunately the cracks started to show. And from the cracks showing, I think we had to start promoting externally. Yeah. And then I think they grew too fast because there was expectations there for them to grow, and they grew too fast. And probably, to be fair, I don't think they had the infrastructure that we needed to grow. And then from that, they did they had some financial problems. They bought some new investors in, who also brought in some of their own people to work with us. My own opinion is I don't think they were the best people, and they did a very bad mistake, and they got rid of one of the operations manager left. And that was a big mistake for them, because he was one of the most talented people in the business, and the cracks started to show. Yeah. And then I think we got to 2008, and personally myself, I felt the business has lost what it was about. It had lost the passion. It had lost everything. And for me, it wasn't the place where I was comfortable to work anymore, and decided to depart from them, really.
And is that when you then started your own venture at that point?
No, not at all. That I rejoined Mitch, actually, because Mitch was also doing some other work.
Oh, okay.
So I rejoined Mitch. And he basically pimped me out to Young Seafoods, if that's a thing. So so I did a project for Young Seafoods, and through that we were basically seeing whether we could sell fresh fish on a van, on a mobile van, and we targeted farm shops, markets, etc. on a 6-month project to see where it was. So that was my next project for the 6 months, really. Okay. To be honest, it was very different. Yeah. And it was quite surreal, really. I come from a group head chef in Fishworks, and now I was selling fish on a mobile fish van, which, to be honest, sometimes when I did actually think, I thought, lucky enough it was 6 months. Nothing against selling fish on a mobile van. But it was quite different from being in charge of, 80 chefs to now being a single man selling fish on a van. It was quite different.
I can imagine quite.
It was quite a shock.
Yeah. And so when did you then start your first Scallop Shell, which was at the White Road farm shop? That's in Frome or Beckington?
That's right. Yeah, but Beckington's a little village just on the outside of Frome. It really evolved from that, really, because the owner there. We were selling fish on the van there. I built up a very good relationship with the owners, Steve and Heather Tucker, and we were coming to the end of the project, really, the end of the 6 months. And Steve approached me. I always remember it on a Saturday afternoon. He said, "When you got 5 minutes?" I went down to Steve, and he said, "Would you like to open your own business?" And I can remember the hair stuck up on my neck, and a tingle went through my body. Because this is something that I'd always dreamed of, right back from when I was 16, having a baby, believing that just because you've had a baby, it doesn't mean your life's over. And I wanted to excel. And my dream was to own my own business. In fact, my dream was to own my own restaurant, actually. But gradually as I went through life, I just wanted to own my own business. And I met so many, what I would class very rich people. I met so many people through my career that told me that how good I was, all that, how they were going to help me in business, how they were going to set me up, how they were going to do that. No one had ever done it. But there was this farmer who had known me for 4 or 5 months, and he said those words that made the hair stick up on my neck. And I can remember going home that night, cracking open a bottle of champagne, and thinking I'm going to be a millionaire. Then I did the figures, realised it's not as simple as that. But it was a chance I dreamt of in my life. I dreamt of that chance.
And how long did you have the store there?
So, to be honest, we started off, and actually we were there for nearly 8 years. And so we started off with a fishmongers and seafood deli. Okay. One of the biggest problems, I had no money. Yeah. And but the owner said to me, "You don't need money. Okay. You don't need any money. All you need is yourself. And I will put everything in. I will put everything that you need in. And we agree all the rent, everything like that. But just bring yourself, Garry. I'll give you a chance." And so we started off with a fishmongers and seafood deli. But at that point, I was raw again now. I was hungry. This opportunity, my life is going to change, and it was going to change because I was going to make it change. Yeah. And this guy gave me this guy had given me an opportunity that I'd only ever dreamt of. So I was gonna make dreams come true. Yeah. Not just for me, but for him as well. And I remember having a conversation with him that, I'd love to do a fish and chip shop one day. I'd love to do it. But we did the fishmongers, we did the seafood deli. I think we had one of the nicest fishmongers in the UK. We created a deli because when we talked about earlier about not using up poor stuff, but you have to recycle. Yes. You have to recycle. So we used we would do the fishmongers, but we would recycle through the deli.
Yeah.
And Lisa, my wife, joined us after about 2 weeks because we were so busy we just couldn't cope with the work. And Lisa used to make all the fish. In fact, in the end, she made everything in the deli with our help and guidance. And hopefully we created this great business. What I would say is it was a very hard business, and we used to work so hard and work so many long hours. And yes, it was a business. Yes, it was doing well, but it didn't make us. It didn't make us a millionaire. Yeah. In fact, it was from far away millionaire.
Yeah.
It paid bills and made us a little bit of money. But it didn't. At that point, it didn't matter. At least I was. It was in my own destiny.
You was on the ladder.
I was on the ladder, and everyone's got to start somewhere.
So how long was it after that when you did the fish and chip shop?
Well, again, we're just working away, and a farmer came to me one day, and he like most farm shop, they always seem to follow the same line, don't they? So they always start with a farm shop, then they open a cafe, then they have a little gift shop, then they have a garden centre, and so on. They all seem to be the same, don't they?
Keep building these little extensions.
Yeah, they keep doing it. So, but anyway, I think he had this massive garden centre on the end. And he come to me one day and he said, "Garry, can you remember you said you'd like to do a fish and chip shop?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you think it'll work here?" "Yeah, I think it would. I think it would work here. I think it would." And I think we've got a reputation now with the fishmongers and deli, so yeah, I think it would work. He said, "Okay, I'm going to build you one."
Oh wow!
So he in great respect to Steve, he built us a brand new fish and chip shop. And that was really, to be honest, obviously massively learning. I knew I had my chefing skills, but I'd never done a fish shop before, fish and chip shop before. And so, I mean, when I think back to our starting days, unbelievable. But I have to say, the fish and chip shop was a real turning point for us. And that's when we started to really make some money.
Coincidentally, that's when we first met. I'm not trying to link your success with me, Garry.
Well,
I'm just saying.
Absolutely. I mean, when I think of how we started off, and it's quite interesting as well because how I say it was great. I had chefs running that with me, and I think it's great having chefs coming into the business. But I think it's also great to say sometimes how arrogant they can be and how they think they know everything. And we were coming into a different industry where I personally didn't, but I had people as part of my staff who thought they were much better than they were.
I think in my industry, obviously my job, shall I say, my day-to-day, meeting fish and chip shop owners, sometimes, well, especially in the early days, you'd meet a chef and they'd be like, "I've got this is easy, blah, blah, blah." And I think what catches them out early on is probably the volumes. I think, because if you've done great fish and chips in a restaurant, you're probably 20, 30 covers a day, fish and chips maybe, because you've got so many other options, haven't you? But then I think that when you go to a real fish and chip shop, fish and chip restaurant, and you're doing thousands of fish and chips, it's a whole different proposition, isn't it?
Well, I think there's so many things that stick in my head from when we first started off, but without completely boring you with everyone, the ones that really stick in my mind was time. So I remember I turned the fryers on. I had them off. We were quite quiet, so I turned the fryers off. I was casually working around, and I think it was about 4:45 in the evening. And now in the restaurant trade, we don't get busy until 7:30.
Yeah.
And so I had one pan on, so I was doing my fish and my chips in one pan to save the oil and save the gas and save all that. And I was casually walking around thinking I had like 2 or 3 hours for the setup before we're going to start cooking. And it kicked at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I was like, and so I was completely in the pub. And that was a big learning curve. The fish and chip industry service starts probably 2 hours before the restaurant service starts. The volumes of fish, like you just said there, I mean, you're prepping so much fish, and it's more fish than I've ever thought we'd ever. The amount of cod you go through is unbelievable, really. And then when we talk about batter, which I think is the first time we pretty much met, is I had a guy working. So to sum up the chef side of it, I had a chef working for me, and he used to make the batter. But he made the batter. He used to make it so thick. It was like porridge.
Is this the really tall guy?
Yeah.
I met him.
Can you remember?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And maybe he was one of the most miserable guys you ever worked with. See.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit arrogant as well. I don't know what your impressions of him was.
It's a while ago, but I vaguely remember him standing sort of in the corner where the sink was, giving me dog eyes, and just thinking, "What's this guy know?"
Yeah.
And I did actually leave that day thinking, "He's saying, they're not interested."
Yeah.
And then obviously, you went on to it, everything.
Yeah.
But I think that is the whole, to some degree, some people. But look, people like him would be like that in a restaurant as well. I think that attitude follows them.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think there's an arrogance to people like that, and the arrogance is they think they've come down. They think they've come in. They think they've come into an industry that is below them.
But it's not just fish and chips. If you look now, you've got years ago people would frown upon anybody in any form of mobile van food business, street food. Now street food globally is it's celebrated, and it's actually it's a respectable cooking profession, let's say. Whereas then, maybe that was when it was maybe starting to come out. But you see chefs that are very well seasoned with great careers doing their own little mobile truck, and
I just think anyone with drive, ambition, passion will look at anything and see where there's an opportunity.
Yeah.
The arrogant, short-minded, short-sighted, with no vision, stays in the zone that we just talked about.
Yeah.
And I remember that guy. He made a batter that looked like porridge. His theory was because the fishes can be wet from being cut and being frozen at sea, he would make a thick batter because at some point it's going to go thin. Well, not being funny, but 90% of your customers would have had porridge and 10% would have had probably the right consistency.
Fish pasty.
Well, why don't? Yeah, absolutely. But why don't you make it the right consistency? And when it starts to get too thin, why don't you make another one? It's not rocket science. That become arrogance and laziness. In reality.
Yeah, and I remember that. And it's an interesting time, but and I think getting people past that, I probably now explain that better as well. At that time, I think 2008-ish, roughly, give or take. It was actually. So I was probably in business for about 2 years myself. So, but now I talk to people a bit better and explain those issues better. And I understand. You are dealing with a wet product, but it doesn't have to be wet. You can dry it. It's not a problem. So now we do tell people you can either pre-dust it or pat it off with a towel. It's fine. So. But times have changed. I do think now it's not like it used to be. I don't think. Well, maybe fish and chips can still be frowned upon. But doing this podcast, I know a lot of chefs or people from the restaurant business listen to it, and they're surprised at how in depth the fish and chip business is. I think there is this initial, it can't be that great. But I think now, generally, that it's seen as a respectable cooking profession, just like all the others. I think, but and if they don't believe it from the outside, they'll believe it when they jump into it because the volumes will soon knock them into shape. I think
the skill. The skill. I mean, we don't forget. I mean, as we were talking earlier with people's with how society has changed. We've gone to we're talking about casual dining, we've gone to much more simple food. In fact, even the top chefs will be cooking much simpler now. And actually, there's a real skill in fish and chips. To cook at that volume and to get consistency. That's not for the faint-hearted. That's a skill level there.
So true.
And I also believe that for the good reason, because where I talk about chefs being arrogant and that, let's not be deluded here. The fish and chip industry also has some very poor operators in our industry, and just like there's very poor chefs in the chefing industry, but the industry is attracting chefs, and it is attracting good chefs, and it is attracting good people, and I think with those chefs coming in that are embracing the fish and chip industry, and knowing that these guys are very, very talented guys in this industry. We're learning from the fish and chip industry, and they're learning from us. Yeah, and actually, it's what it's doing is it's making the fish and chip industry even stronger.
It's a bit of a handover, isn't it? And I've always said that the more of anyone new coming into any industry, there is the opportunity to learn something.
Absolutely.
I deal with a lot of shops, and people that come in with it with a new set of eyes, you sometimes look at them and think, what are they doing that for? Yeah. And then you stand back and think, well, wait a minute, let's just watch this. This ain't crazy, this is clever. And you'll say, where did you get that idea from? So I just thought it was the obvious way to do it. And you think, it's just because they didn't come in with those preconceptions. Whereas if you're from the industry, like I was, for example, I was born into it, I just did a certain thing for a certain way because I was told that was the right way. And you don't think of that, It's almost like train tracks. You just stick to that road. But when you see other people doing it, you're like, actually, that's a really good idea. I see that a lot here with you. I see a lot when you do something different. I'm like, okay, he's making sense. That makes complete sense. So moving on slightly, in 2015, I think you opened Scallop Shell in Bath.
That's right. Yeah.
So, do you think that, without going into this, we're going to go on to it, but do you think that you learnt a lot in Frome or Beckington, or whatever you call it, at the farm shop? Or did you learn a lot, get a lot of your mistakes out of the way before you came over here?
Yes. One thing I did learn is don't do business on a fag packet. And I can't say, look, in a nutshell, I wouldn't be sat here now today if it wasn't for the farmer. But actually, unfortunately, we parted company at the farm shop, and actually because I did it on a fag packet, we actually built business for the farmer in reality. But look, let's not. You move on.
Essentially,
you move on.
Yeah, but essentially, what you're saying, without pointing fingers to anybody, is what you're saying is like that type of informality doesn't work in the future because you've got no expectations, you've got nothing to your name, and it's all on a handshake. And if something goes the other way, and that this happens to everybody all over the country. So would you recommend that people that go into that sort of business arrangement have something properly written down and signed? And
I mean, one of the learning points in business, like you said, you learn on time. But now I won't do anything now if it hasn't been documented. Gone for the solicitors. It has to be checked because at the end of the day, you're protecting yourself as well. You're the one with the skills you're going through, and you're protecting yourself. But that's a learning point. At the end of the day, I can even today. Without the farmer, Steve the farmer, we wouldn't be sat here talking today, that's just where we are. So no sour grapes.
No, it's a bit sweet.
That's where we were.
There's
Absolutely.
There's lots of good, but there's some better.
Absolutely. I mean, we came to that was the big learning. We came to Bath. I probably said earlier, you probably hear me, my dream was to always open my own restaurant in Bath because we lived in Bath all our lives. I've worked in a lot of restaurants in Bath. Know lots of the owners. I always wanted to do it, and now we had got the opportunity basically to come here and do it. So
and the place is completely different to when you first took over. Because I remember what a shoestring budget. Like I remember saying to people like. A lot of people say, oh, you can't do a restaurant or a takeaway without money. And I was like, no, go to the Scallop Shell in Bath because this guy has made it happen with zero money. Well, not zero, literally, but it was not a lot of money, was it? And I remember when I first came and I was looking at your tables and I was thinking, why do they look really familiar? And you were like, oh, they're doors. And a lot of people wouldn't, you literally made, something out of not a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty genius, And how long do you think it was before you then sort of managed to get the money together or to refund it and redo it?
Well, to be honest, you're absolutely right. We had very little money, and we nearly didn't have it. To be honest, because we were at a time when all the banks had collapsed. So where I thought we were going to get support from the bank, we found it very, very difficult. But lucky enough, we had one bank that actually obviously still did things old school actually. So the bank manager still came out, which is quite unusual. And he probably obviously got on well with him, and so he said, okay, yeah, we'll do it. So, but at that point. We were probably about 48 hours from completely losing it.
Wow.
We managed to get it, but you can imagine at that point you had no builders. The builder who I wanted to do the job was 6 months already booked out, so he couldn't do it. But I had a lady called George who did all our art, all our sign writing. And she'd never done any design work before. So she said, I said, can you design a restaurant? And she said, well, I've never done it. And I said, yeah, but I know you're good. So can you just do it? She said, okay, I'll have a go. At that point as well, her partner was a builder. And at the moment it was winter, so he was just doing some painting. So he did the building with his labourer.
Oh wow!
And so it all happened just like that, which I'm sure many stories have. But we, like you said, we made things out of pallets.
I remember.
And you'll still see that a lot of that downstairs today. So, but she's just got an eye, and she's just a genius in that, and she's quite hippie-ish as well. She won't mind me saying that. So she likes to recycle products and do all that side of it. So in reality, I suppose through panic, it came together really.
And at the time you opened, there was a takeaway and a restaurant downstairs, and now you've sort of got rid of the takeaway and there's a restaurant upstairs. So when you first opened, how many covers was there?
Well, when we first opened, I think we were 48 covers.
Okay.
And we were really lucky, to be honest, because it just went mental. And it just kept going on. I suppose through passion, everything I talked about, the dream had really started to happen now. We carried on. I carried on evolving. I carried on driving forward. I had visions, and every time I thought I hit that vision, I had more vision, and we kept driving, changing, and people seemed to love. Maybe it was just something completely different in Bath. Maybe the price wasn't there, maybe the style was different, maybe the informality was different, but something was different to most of the restaurants in Bath. And it got to the point where we did have a takeaway as well, but it got to the point where we pretty much, most evenings, especially to the latter part of the week, it wouldn't be unusual where we would have at least 1 hour plus waiting queue to get in here.
Wow.
And we're very lucky because we had a pub next door. And it wasn't the nicest pub at that point, if I'm being blatantly honest. I used to get really worried about holding people in there because there'd be quite a few smashed up people on at the bar. But we had, we held people there, and then we run in. Part of the formality was just to run in there and shake people's names out.
Yeah, really.
But I remember, it wouldn't be unusual to hold 90 people in that pub. Obviously, the pub were loving it as well. Lucky enough, it's been refurbed now and taken over because it's a lot nicer in there now. But it got to that point where we were so busy, and we were building naturally. We were building profit, and we wanted to expand really on from that.
And so then you obviously got the money together. You'd reinvested, and where are we now then, covers wise?
So basically, we were actually looking to go Bristol, or we thought about maybe going to Bristol, but we thought we'd approach the landlord because there was an upstairs, and the upstairs at that point were offices, and so we approached the landlord and said, look, this is our plans, but where are we is there any scope upstairs? And he said, well, that's quite interesting because I was actually going to approach you to see whether you're interested in upstairs. And for me, it just made more sense because we got all the range in, we got the infrastructure, we got everything in. All we had to do was make the upstairs into a restaurant. So I thought the risk element was much lower by expanding upstairs rather than going to Bristol. Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we did.
And you've got the terrace as well.
Well, the terrace was always, I knew above the kitchen was a potential terrace. So again, al fresco eating is obviously people love it and all that. I suppose the downside is it's out the back of the restaurant, so it's not visual from the road.
That makes sense.
But in reality, I knew once people know, then we had an opportunity to fill that up there as well.
And you're at 117 covers now, is it? 100 and...
we're actually at 112.
Okay, 112.
112 with the terrace.
Yeah.
which is amazing. But actually, when we expanded, we put all on money that we had made. We put everything back into the upstairs refurb. I'm not sure it was a good thing or not so much the expansion, but actually, to be honest, I hate the flaff. I like simplicity about everything, and I hate the flaff of banks.
Yeah,
I hate having to fill in forms and do this and do that and do this and explain what you're going to do and what you're going to do there and all this. Hate it all. So I thought we had enough money, so I thought I'm going to do it, which some people would find madness in some respects. Also, don't really want to pay people interest, ideally. Yeah. Obviously, the risk element, because if it didn't work, then you're stuck. But actually, we had the money, and I thought, well, I don't want to bother the banks. I just want to do it and get it done. Yeah. So that's what we did. So we were skint again. To be honest, we were totally skint at the end of it, because it's naturally, like every development, it goes over budget.
In business, you sort of get used to being skint until you're not, and then
But it was a scary time. This was a scary time, actually, Stel. Really though, because never before I had 20 employees at that point, and lucky enough, we only had to close down for 2 weeks. Yeah. But there was a point where we were getting right to the end of the budget of what money we had, but also had 20 employees. Yeah. That still needed to be paid. And so it was quite a worrying time, actually. Wow. And there was, to be honest, I probably did give myself some sleepless nights over that. And actually also when we did open up, just because you expand the restaurant or you double the size of the restaurant doesn't mean you're going to get double the amount of covers. And it didn't happen getting busier didn't happen overnight. So in reality it was a very difficult time, actually. Probably one of the hardest times I can ever remember, because we were now skint. We had a business really where we had doubled in size, but we still had the same size in the kitchen.
Of course.
And we were trying to run a takeaway, and we were trying to run a double-sized restaurant. And trying to run that as two businesses, the revenue we were taking in wasn't performing well as a business. That's what essentially made you just to shut down the takeaway in the end. Well, I looked at it because now, as a chef and being passionate and everything we talked about so far today, I get really upset if we're not doing things right, and I get really upset if the quality and the consistency is not there. Yeah. And we'd done a really silly mistake, really, where the infrastructure wasn't good enough. We were now compromising quality and consistency, but we were also compromised quality and consistency through the staff we had let into the business. Yeah. Because we didn't have the infrastructure, so therefore we got people into the business because we had to get numbers. And some of these people, their attitudes wasn't right. So we had a lot of problems. Yeah. And to be honest, I wasn't enjoying working in it. No. And I was aggressive. I was angry every day. Because to be honest, being totally honest with you, we were in the shit every single day. And for 4 months, it was probably some of the hardest times in my life, in my career. Actually, it's probably the hardest times in my career. And I knew I had to do something, and I had to make a really brave decision. And that takeaway was doing well, but we couldn't cope. Yeah, we really couldn't cope, and I knew we closed it down. We could regather. We could I could get the consistency back. I could. The quality was there, but the quality of the ingredients were there, but we weren't looking after it well enough.
The problem is essentially that we both of those things going off, that as much as you love them both, is that someone's getting crappy service somewhere, some part of the time. Whereas what you're saying is if we get rid of one, we can just focus on that one part of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I had to do. And some people, there was only one person that told me to do it. I knew I wanted to do it, but everyone was telling me, don't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. You're doing well. Your takeaway's taking good money. We were doing, I think we're doing $8,000 a week. Well, no one gets rid of a business doing $8,000 a week. But I wasn't enjoying it. And I didn't come into this business not to enjoy it. Yeah. So I closed it. Yeah. I closed it, basically.
Wow. I think it's a brave move, and I think that the whole concept's a brave move as well, though, to be honest, because you have also just stuck to seafood. You haven't been lured away by doing other non-seafoody items, and I think that whilst you're there, you might as well go all the way and be bold.
Yeah. Well, I think two things there really is one thing we did do is, you're absolutely right. We were compromising consistency because we were trying to do two elements of the business out of one kitchen. The infrastructure wasn't right, and it wasn't set to do that. So as soon as we closed the takeaway down, we could just concentrate on one area, and we started to progress on. What we didn't actually do as well was, naturally the margins are tighter in a takeaway. So what we were able to do is we were able to the gross profit went up. Our food cost went down. So what we were losing on what we were losing on sales, we were gaining back on the bottom line. So that was a positive step. And also, we didn't actually save on the staffing bill because of the business, we were working with two skeleton staff, one in the takeaway, one in the restaurant. So what we did then is we got rid of the staff that weren't good enough for our business, but it meant we could put the right amount of staff into the restaurant.
Of course.
And then gradually we revolved on, and we started the business started to grow, and we became more consistent, and then gradually, as better reviews, and then better reviews means more customers, and effectively we are where we are today. The reason fish was really because, go back to my first days in the seafood cafe, and I realised how much little I knew. And fish is really, if you think about it in these terms, is the general public, most people are really scared of fish. And there's a couple of reasons for that, mainly probably from school, because we've got the most awful fish at school. and actually, to be honest, supermarkets are to blame for that as well, because quite honestly, some of the quality on their counters are pretty poor.
Bit rogue.
And it smells. So that puts people off. And so, yes, we alienated ourselves by not doing any meat dishes. But what we did do is we became somewhere where people trusted. And people gained confidence because they knew that we only specialise in fish. And it's quite weird, isn't it? Because where people are scared of fish, and they always think fish or shellfish is going to make them not very well. If you think about it, we do the bath every day, as you know. We set up the fish count on the bath. But with fish and shellfish, you can see it looks poor, and you can smell it looks poor.
If it looks a bit flat and a bit dull, matte, then you sort of think,
your days from your childhood, from where you've been brought up from. I mean, the fish markets, you go down there. I mean, the eyes are banging out the head, and the gills are red, and the market doesn't smell. It's just got an aroma of fresh ingredients, of fresh fish.
Is that salty sweetness? Is that it's weird, isn't it?
But we think that fishy smell is what fish is.
That's what people. There's that negative connotation with the fish smell.
But if you think fish and shellfish is so much safer than meat, because actually we see it. We can physically see the fish is poor, but we can definitely smell the fish is poor. But with a piece of meat, you can't see that. But people feel much more comfortable with meat. They think meat's much safer.
I think that's also. I think also, if we look at people cooking fish at home, I think it's because the tolerance of getting fish right is smaller. With meat, for example, if you overcook a steak a little bit, it's all right. But if you overcook fish a little bit, it's dry, and it's expensive as well. So I think from a home point of view, I think it could be quite wasteful if it's not done right. I think
it could be. But I actually think the main problem we don't cook fish at home is because it's very, very hard now to find a fishmonger.
Well, and this is a massive thing, isn't it?
I mean, we've only just got one in Bath now. Since the seafood cafe or Fishworks closed down. So if you think that was 2008, and we're now 19, and it opened last year. So we haven't had a fishmonger in Bath for over 10 years. The problem is for various reasons, I think most of the time we buy fish from a supermarket, which nothing against supermarkets. Supermarkets are providing a service, and but they obviously they're providing a service and a cost price that they can sell that fish at. So quite often it's being imported in, or it's come from long distance away, or it's come off big boats that can be at sea for many days. And so when we get that fish home, sometimes it's not as fresh as it could be, and so if it's not as fresh as it can be, you get a really strong aroma in your kitchen.
It's vacuum packed and so on.
Vacuum packed, so it sweats, all these things, and I think that aroma puts people cooking at home.
I think what's pretty despicable, and I was reading it recently on Twitter, is that Tesco's were probably instrumental, as all the supermarkets were, in sort of closing down fishmongers, and now Tesco's are getting rid of the fishmongers. And I thought that was a bit strange. So I wonder if we'll start seeing more fishmongers popping up again.
I think it's a difficult one. I actually don't think we will.
No.
And the reason why I don't think we will is I think you'll see maybe fish counters closing down in supermarkets. Mm-hmm. I think fish counters in supermarkets are there just as... it's just there to give people an opportunity. I think what you might see in supermarkets is much more fish being packaged and sold for a third party in there. But I don't think they make very much money in supermarkets, if I'm honest. And it's such a volatile product, and also the skill level you need to be able to prepare that fish, etc., etc. I think the problem is, the reason why I don't see fishmongers come in is fish is still probably one of the only wild species left that we buy, really, because obviously a lot of meat is farmed, etc., etc. So, and people risk their lives, and there's quotas, so days at sea are restricted. So there's a price to fish, and unfortunately, through that price, it might, some of it might be out of people's cost of living. So, and I can only go back to my only days running the Fishmongers Seafood Deli. Was I think they were some of the hardest days I've worked, but for very little returns. And when I look at that, because society's changed, and we've already said that people eat out a lot more now, I think people might prefer to go out and eat it more
rather
than they will cook it.
Well, you also cook fish at home; it lingers, doesn't it?
Well, I think it lingers. It can be the packagage. Because we tend to take the packaging out and put it straight in the bin.
Of course.
And then if we don't put the bin out for a day, 2 days, naturally, that fishy smell's coming. But also, I think like everything, it has got an aroma. I mean, you cook a piece of steak at home. If I cook my steak at home, we get a big wave of smoke. All the smoke alarms go off, and but there's I wake up next morning, I can smell cooked steak.
In fairness, if my house always smelled of steak, I wouldn't leave the house.
So. But we love that smell. But obviously, there is an aroma of fish, and maybe the aroma of fish might be not as pleasant as the aroma of steak.
It makes sense.
But possibly.
So I did a bit of fishing, please excuse the pun, on your website. I've known you for ages anyway, but I just did some research, and I noticed on your website that there are a couple of things that you really promote provenance. You're always saying where something comes from. So cod, you've got where it comes from, haddock, where it comes from, all your species where it comes from. But then you also talk about how there's over 40 species, roughly, in the British waters. So A, how important do you think provenance is, and B, how far do you go to really source responsibly sourced fish? And seafood.
It's an interesting question, actually, but a really good question. And I'm very, very into making sure that everything we put on our menu is sourced responsibly, and naturally, everybody in this industry, in the chefing world and everything, we should always be making sure there's fish there for future generations to come. All my life, I think sustainability is very political, and it's very complex. It really is complex, and I think you have to take a real view over it. And some of the things I say might not be to everyone's agreement, but like I said, it is political. I've always believed, and I've always enjoyed working for small suppliers. And small artisan fisheries, fishing boats that are owned by husband and wives. And I've been doing this now for over 25 years. And so a lot of my suppliers now are still small independent businesses. My belief is by buying from small boats. They're very small boats, they're very small nets. They're going out every day or whatever their quota allows them to go out and fishing for their livelihoods.
Well, yeah, they're not exactly trawling the seabed, are they?
Exactly. Yeah. I think the smaller the boats, the smaller nets, the more sustainable that can be. I also believe that by eating lots of different species is a great way of helping sustainability, because if we all eat turbot every day, then in the end there'd be no turbot.
Yeah.
But if we eat lots of different species, then we're spreading that out, and that is for me that's a very good way of doing it as well. We buy fish when it's in season, not when it's in season, because on the market fish is priced on availability and demand. So if there's no turbot and everyone's demanding turbot, well then the price will shoot sky high.
Of course, yeah.
And not obviously very expensive. But if there's lots of turbot and it's in season, then the price will drop.
It's abundant. Yeah.
So that's important. So we work on prices. Prices normally determine whether the fish is in season, because there'd be so much of it, the price will drop. So that's important as well. I also buy different sizes. So, for instance, fish is normally graded from +1 to 6.
Okay.
So maybe if I take a monkfish towel for an example, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
So monkfish will be graded in +1 to 6. Most chefs will use round about normally number 3, number 4 monkfish. Now, basically, chefing has come very, the general public love to cook now.
Yeah.
Chefing has become really cool, really lots of celebrity chefs now, massive amount of cooking programs on TV, and actually, what happens is what chefs cook on TV is generally what the general public want to cook.
So it sort of drives demand.
Yeah, and it's what I call prime and non-prime.
Yeah.
So if we go back to the monkfish, number 3 and number 4, because it makes the perfect cylinder, the perfect portion size, number 3 and number 4, what I call prime. So I don't take the prime. I don't take 3 and 4s and 2s, because they're a huge price because the demand is there. I take number 6s. And number 6s are the size of my hand. So they're not very big.
Yeah.
It's like just a little bit bigger than a chicken drumstick. But they will be half the price of the number 3s and 4s.
Yeah.
Now they've been caught; they've lost their life. So what is more criminal? Is it more criminal to use a monkfish tail the size of my hand, or is it more criminal to give it back to the boat and go and dump it back at sea? This thing. So you can see some people will agree with me, some people won't. So it's political.
I think more so. Yeah, I think you, as an industry, we're better off talking about responsible sourcing, not sustainable sourcing, because surely sustainability is one factor and it sits under responsible, whereas you're talking about the responsibility, and if that fish is going to get discarded because it's too big, then that's a shame, isn't it?
I think we as fish and chip in the industry and as a chef in industry, if it is responsible for us, if that species has lost its life for human consumption, then we have a responsibility to use that species.
Yeah.
If we chuck that in a bin, or we send it to fish food, or we just dump it back at sea for fish to feed on, I don't think we fulfilled our responsibility. So for me, responsible fishing is to use what's landed, providing that fish has been landed in a sustainable sustainable grounds using sustainable methods.
And do you think it helps with you because you do have the bathtub full of fish and people can see it and see how fresh it is and talk to somebody there about the species and how nice it is and how it's going to be cooked? Do you think that's obviously an advantage for you, isn't it, to some degree?
Well, it's an advantage, but actually in reality it doesn't matter whether you've got a bath full of fish and they can see it and all that. We have a responsibility to source the best fish, or fish that is caught in sustainable grounds. We also have a responsibility to make sure our produce is of the highest quality.
Yeah.
So, and it is absolutely my belief that if your produce is good and you've got the best quality ingredients and you cook it in the best possible way, your customers will see that and they will taste that. And if they taste that and feel that and see that, they will come back. So I don't think you need to see it, but I think you have a responsibility to make sure you're cooking the best quality ingredients as possible. And also I would probably say that sourcing locally I don't agree with sourcing locally. I agree with sourcing the best quality products as locally as possible.
Yeah, as near as possible.
Possible. So, for instance, as an example, when I was at the farm shop, the farmer would produce Maris Pipers for me for September and October and maybe a little bit of November. But those potatoes weren't any good after November. So then my potatoes will come from the east, from Lincolnshire, etc. So that means the potatoes were right on my doorstep. They weren't 2 miles away. They weren't 5 miles away. They were
the garden,
10 yards away.
Exactly, yeah.
But they weren't good enough for me.
No.
So therefore, I'm getting my potatoes from the east, southeast.
Yeah, and although sourcing is really important, so is serving customers great food. So they're not going to come back if you say, "Oh, well, these potatoes are at the farm," and they're like, "Oh, horrible." Like, they're not going to come back.
That's what I mean. So don't. Let's not get caught. Let's not get caught in trends.
Yeah.
Do what is right. Do what is absolutely right.
Again, it's long-term ethics, isn't it?
Long-term ethics, but at the end of the day, it's what we put in that box. And I don't look at the I don't look at the restaurant and takeaway any different. I look at the takeaway, when we had the takeaway, I look at the takeaway being my restaurant food being taken home. Let's be responsible for putting in the box something of quality. And however you source it. Don't compromise on that.
And I'm putting you on the spot here because I didn't put this question to you earlier, but if, for example, a fish and chip restaurant, pub, whatever, wanted to do a different species, whether it was fried, grilled, but they always do cod and chips or haddock and chips, where would you say they should look to first as a different species that customers won't feel alien to either?
Okay, what I'd say first of all is the first thing they should do is find out where the local market is. Okay, phone up a supplier. I say we're blessed with the internet. It's easy now. Okay, phone up a supplier. Just say, look, I'm thinking about. I've got a fish and chip shop, got a restaurant, whatever you got. And phone them up and say, can I come down to market? They'll lend you a hat, or they say, bring a hat. They'll lend you some wellies. They'll lend you a white coat, and you go on the market with them. That's the first step, because then you're going to see all the different species. You're also going to build a relationship with that person. And when you start to work with that person, you can see that person. You see who you'll be. He's going to help you. I mean, you just took the trouble to go all the way down the market. You've said hello. You've probably gone and had breakfast and a coffee and done all the sorts of things. So actually, you've now started a relationship with that person. So he now wants to help you because you've got no experience of all these different species. He knows everything about those species. So you start to get that combination going together. And then gradually, you just take your time. You might start off with one species and you might see how it goes. What I can tell you is, which most people will find quite shocking, is we're seeing frozen at sea cod and haddock and etc. going up in price.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that. I mean, I
think it's about 35% up this year, I think, isn't it?
I think when we started off, if I remember rightly, when I started off, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were paying about 80 quid a box.
When I spoke to Bobby Joyce in one of the last podcasts, he said in 2008 roughly, fish and chips was £75 to £80 a box, and people were screaming about how expensive it was. And now I think we're going to probably hit 180 this year or something. I think
I'm on 155 at the moment, but I've actually been told that there might be a chance it might even go to 200. Wow. I don't mean it go to 200, because obviously it gets raised up. But I wouldn't be surprised if it gets to 175, 180 as well. What I can tell you, I bought hake the other day. It's beautiful hake, straight from the Loo market. It's come from Dayboat market, and
Cornish hake is like the top of the tree, isn't it?
It's beautiful, isn't it? I bought that at £7 a kilo.
Wow.
Filleted. That's cheaper than frozen at sea cod.
And hake, I mean, it is an amazing fish.
Yeah.
Right? And I think you can get some ropey frozen at sea or frozen on land or whatever it is, hake from wherever. But I think the fresh stuff is just like.
For me, there will never be any comparison between totally fresh, the best fresh fish that you can buy and the fresh frozen fish you can do. The difference being we all know when you take the best quality, frozen at sea cod you can get. When you portion that and it's defrosted, you'll see the residue in the bottom of the tray, don't you? That's clear. You can't get away from that. The difference to me is with the fresh fish, you don't see that.
Yeah,
and that's because that juice is inside the fish still.
I think, and I think I'm not a scientist, but I do think that's probably down to the fact that when the fish is frozen, that water expands, and then when it defrosts, it then obviously leaves the product. And I think, whereas that doesn't happen with fresh fish.
No, and it's a little bit dry and a little bit firmer texture in the frozen fish, and you can see that if you break into the fresh fish, you will see the juices flow out.
I think the draw for frozen at sea, well, for cod and haddock, let's say the main two species that a fish and chip restaurant or takeaway would use, I think it's just that consistency, that all year round consistency. I think that really helps. I think.
Absolutely. And we even at the restaurant now, we're frozen at sea cod, and naturally we take the best cod possible. We take naturally, like I think most or any good fish and chip shop now, anybody in the industry are all using MSC approved cod. That's very, very important. But actually, we talk about demand. So I can't at the moment find any fresh cod anywhere near even though the price of frozen at sea cod is expanding and getting more, I still can't get any fresh cod anywhere near the same price as that, and so we're on that, but it's still but not taking away from frozen sea cod. It's a very, very good product, and the haddock.
So just quickly before we move on, you mentioned MSC, and we did speak about it when we were setting up. So why would you say you go out your way to source MSC certified frozen at sea? Why have you not gone down the route of getting chain of custody? So explain that to people listening.
Okay, nothing against MSC.
No, of course not.
If I'm honest, because what is absolutely crucial, especially in the fish and chip industry, because the amount of cod and haddock that we sell in our industry is absolutely phenomenal, and it is an absolute must that we are using fish that is coming from sustainable fishing grounds and being caught in a sustainable manner.
Yeah,
that's absolutely true. The main reason I don't we use MSC cod, but we're not MSC approved. And the absolute main reason of this is goes back to my earlier when we're talking, is I love to use small independent suppliers, and I always have done, and I don't think I'll ever change. I don't think I'll ever change on that. And I use a very small company in Bristol for our frozen at sea cod, but they deliver. They're based in Bristol, very small company. I've used them for 15 years now. They deliver all my fresh haddock from Scotland. They deliver all my langoustines from Tarbert in Scotland, all my razor clams. They deliver all my fresh cockles. They deliver all my scallops. They deliver the langoustines. If I run out, they run from Bristol and come over. But there's a cost. There's a cost in the custody of chain.
Of course.
And when I spoke to them, they said, Gary, we're not big enough. We can't afford the custody of chain.
Yeah.
And I don't want to compromise losing a supplier because they can't afford to be in a custody of chain. Yeah, and that's the reason.
So you already believe in their ethics. That's not a problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're responsible.
Yep.
But that for you, that cost would probably cripple them.
Yeah. I'm not gonna drop a supplier that I've used for 15 years just because their business cannot afford to be in that custody of chain. And what's really important to me is, okay, I'm not MSC approved, but I am using MSC cod.
Yeah.
And that's important to me. Yeah. That's the most important to me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We got quite political all then, didn't we? Yeah.
And this is the thing.
It's serious, though, isn't it?
It does, and it just shows that you've taken a real interest in the business you're in, and, many wouldn't care, and many wouldn't want to answer it because it's a difficult question, and we're not trying to embarrass anybody, we're just trying to have a good conversation about it, and hopefully the right people listen to that, and maybe someone at MSC would say, you know what, we need a scheme for these smaller businesses because we're bringing more people into the pool. So you never know, they might do, but if no one's talking about it, no one can do it. So but one question I had was, how nerve-wracking is it serving someone like Marco Pierre White and Pierre Kaufman in the restaurant?
Wow. That's quite interesting.
It's a regular thing now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I'll tell you what happened. I got a call around about 11 o'clock from a good friend of mine, Richard Burtoney, and he phoned me on a Monday. And to be honest, okay, it doesn't matter too much now, but Monday is probably the worst day you can come into. It's actually no. I gotta rephrase that. There's no worst day, but look, we can't shy away from it. All the fish that is on our counter on Monday has come from Friday's market. Well, that's the truth.
Yeah. Well, Anthony Bourdain always used to say that, didn't he? Don't eat fish on a Monday.
Yeah.
But yeah. So.
And I do, like, in some, you know, in some degree, he's right in some degree, because we know it's from Friday's market. Yeah. And let's not kid ourselves. I can't say it's coming from the market on Monday. It's come from the supplier on Monday, but it hasn't come in. It's been for the market on Friday. So, so you can imagine, I get this call on a Monday at 11 o'clock saying Marco Pierre White's coming into your restaurant for lunch today, and I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, it's a Monday, and I got this ex-free Michelin star guy coming in. I've obviously had, you know, if you don't know Marco, then you actually hear stories of Marco. You know, like he can kill people just by looking at him. He's made Gordon Ramsay cry. Yeah. I mean, you know, excuse my language, but I am now shitting myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, he comes in. I wasn't actually working. I come in, I think I'm going to be brave to say hello to him. I went to walk down to him. I thought, I can't be that brave. I walked back. I went to walk into him, went back. Went to walk down and went back. I thought, I can't disturb him, because his back was to me. And I thought, I'm not going to disturb him because I just don't know how to go. So anyway, I didn't say hello. I just walked off. And then I got a call from Richard Burtoney saying Marco's been in for lunch. And he said he absolutely loved it. And I was like, really? What, a 3-star Michelin chef has just come in and said he loved it? Don't be stupid, like, it's not possible. It's fish and chips, it's not possible. My arrogance, actually, to some degree.
You sort of reverted back a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, my arrogance in some respects.
You almost thought that misconception was in him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought, you know, the guy is an absolute genius, as we all know, and how can he ever think that was great? I mean, it's just fish and chips. So that was that. He said it was great. No thing. And then I remember it was 12:15 on a Wednesday, the Wednesday, and I'd set the bath up, and we're just doing a briefing with the staff, and this minibus pulled up outside the restaurant with MPW on the minibus, and 7 people walked out of the minibus, including Marco. And walked in, said, any chance of a table 7 chef? I said, yeah. And that time we did introduce each other. And so he said,
you weren't scared this time?
I was scared. I was really scared, but then now, like, 7 other guys there.
Basically, and, you got caught out.
Yeah, got caught out. And anyway, this time he said, look, I really love your number. And so I said, okay, no problem, chef, I'll come and see you after. And so they had lunch, said they loved it, and swapped numbers. And then he gave me a ring that afternoon and said, Garry, I want you to bring your family up, bring your wife up, come and stay with me at my house, because he lives 10 miles away, and come up and have dinner and stay the night with me and everything like that. And it just went from there, really. And I always remember I was crapping myself again up his hotel, because his hotel is unbelievable. And he came in, he was out when we got there, and he came in and he sat down, we had some wine, and then we had dinner with him. And then we had, then I think we went to bed about 2 o'clock in the morning. We'd obviously had a few shandies by that point as well. And then we got up and we had breakfast with him. And then I think we left about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And it was just unbelievable that when you're in his company, he's probably one of the most amazing guys I've ever met. And when you're in his company, you just talk about food, and you talk about life, and you talk about everything. And Marco is one of the nicest, kindest, most intelligent people I've ever met in my life. And I always dreamt of working for him. But I think where we dream, and we dream of our own restaurant, whether fate has it, but I always dreamed of working for Marco, but circumstances didn't allow me. But it's amazing that he came into my life when we had a restaurant, and now we're actually really good friends. He helps me so much in the restaurant, his ideas. He gives me unbelievable things to use, and he comes in the restaurant all the time.
Surely it's better to work with him rather than for him. I think most people are still traumatised by working for him. Well, those that got traumatised, everyone else sort of did all right.
Yeah, I think to be honest though, I mean, he still has that presence. I mean, you know,
like the Chuck Norris, isn't he?
Well, my son's just finished 7 months for him.
Oh, has he?
And Marco has a presence, and quite rightly so. And he make hair stand on your neck. But he is an absolute genius, and and I don't know what it was like when he was. I've heard some stories. I mean, to be honest, but we all have stories, and days in kitchens were hard and rough.
Long time.
But I work with some of his team now that used to work with him at Harvey's, and they said even now that's the best time of their life.
Oh, really?
Because when it's hard, you hear about the rough, but you don't hear about the nights out. You don't hear about the beers after work, the laughs, and all that. But when you're in that kitchen and you're on service, I mean that's another world. And you could be screaming at each other, you could be swearing, you could be some people get hit and all that. But to be honest, service is service, and once it's done, it's done. After that, you're all having a beer, and it's one of the best trades in the world. It really is. And
you also, your friendship sort of carried on, but you've also helped them recently set up a place in Kent, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean Marco is, I mean, he's one of he doesn't stop. He's incredible. People think he's retired. He hasn't retired. I mean, he is one of the hardest working men you ever see, and I think when it's in your blood, it's in your blood. And so you might have done 90 hours a week in the kitchen. He still does 90 hours now.
Wow.
But they might not be all physical.
It's different work.
They might not be 90 hours physical working, but what he's not doing physically, he's working out mentally. And the guy's a genius in so many areas. And so we become very good friends.
Good.
They love what we do here. I don't want to open up a chain. It's not what I'm about. It's not what I believe in. It's not a
different skill set, isn't it?
It's a different skill set. You need infrastructure. Don't forget, we talked about Fishworks not having the right infrastructure. I haven't got that infrastructure. I'm just not skilled enough to do it on that level. I love what I do here. If someone else can do what I do here and mould that somewhere else with the infrastructure, I'm quite happy to be a part of that. And that's what we've done together. Okay. So there's 3 of us in that chain, and all of us bring something to the table.
I see.
But we bring our assets to the table. And we make it work. And I love it. To be honest, I love doing it. I love doing it. I love going to Dover, and I love working with the guys in the kitchen there, and I love helping them.
What's that restaurant called there, that one?
That's called Marco's Seafood Kitchen.
Okay.
Or Seafood Market.
And it's probably different for you because, like you say, if you're working as part of a team, there's a support network there, isn't there? And
well, that's where most if you're going to run if you're going to make a chain, or you're going to be corporate, you need very good infrastructure. And that naturally, as you know, they've got over 50 restaurants in the black and white chain, and their infrastructure is unbelievable. It is clearly unbelievable. And if you want to make a chain, you need that. And I'm more than happy to be part of that and to share my knowledge and experience and inspire other people. I want people to come back to the Scallop Shell and enjoy this as an independent.
And to be fair, since you've been in this industry, you've always been about sharing that, because you know the work that you do, like with KFE as well, don't you? With being one of their trainers at the training school, you've always sort of given back to other people, and and I think that's quite important, that you've not sort of, you do help. It's quite good that you do that.
Well, people used to say to me when I first joined it, they say there's no friends in business.
Oh, okay.
Well, I disagree with that. I do disagree with that. I think you are going to find people that are not the right people, and you learn that. You might learn the hard way, you might learn the soft way, but you do find that people are not good, and they're not friends. But I do believe there are friends in business, and one of those people I met was Paul Williams from KFE, and Paul was instrumental when he came down to talk about a range. putting on a new frame range in, and he helped me. And he helped me a lot. He helped me in those days when we were talking about the batter as well, and et cetera, et cetera. And Paul's a really, really good friend. And Paul, again, is someone I believe who is in this business for the right reasons. And he gives so much back to the industry as well, and he's so passionate about the industry, and so we became really good friends through that, and naturally through his business, there was an opportunity for me to come and help his business hopefully grow, but not just help his business grow, help the industry achieve and maybe have a little different look at how we're going, and hopefully, I love going there. I love going there and teaching. And I can see already how the industry has adapted some of those methods. Yeah. And if that helps the industry, that's good for all of us.
Definitely.
Because, all the industry, it's about making the industry stronger.
Yeah.
These people keep, we've got secret this and secret that. Well, it's not.
It's a rising tide effect. If you help the industry, then everyone wants to eat within that sector. So if you've got more customers, then you're all laughing, aren't you? Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think Paul sees that, and I see that, and I think a lot of people in the industry do. And I would encourage more people to share.
I think someone like Paul, he does a lot for charity, but he's not doing it for the PR. He's doing it because he genuinely wants to help. But I think also what he realises is that their business model. It's all about hopefully people investing in their business. Yes, they want to sell ranges, we get that, but we all know that if you invest in your business with the right equipment, you will do better. And I think it's that, I think they do a really good job of telling people, look, if you want to be doing well in this business, you need to have the right equipment. I think Paul's a nice guy, and he's really honest about that, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. And I think what Paul does is, we talk about quality of ingredients to get consistency. You've got to have a quality engine. Yeah. In order to cook. And so obviously, not promoting KFE. That's not what it's about. No, but it's a quality. Yeah. It's a quality range. It's amazing how that range gets hammered every day in our restaurant, and it still comes up looking like brand new every single day, and it's consistent, and it's brilliant. So that's really, really important. But what Paul does, when we talked about, the very first question you asked me was about when do you know you want to be a chef, and I talked about, and we talked about the college and all that. I talked about the heart. KFE is the heart, because they've got ex-fish and chip shop of the year trainers there, and they give you the basics of doing fish and chips well. Yeah. And they also learn you about the quality of the ingredients to do fish and chips well. It's a very basic in the fact of, they're not going to teach you, you have to learn as you go along. But they give you the heart. They give you the heart. Yeah. What we've done as well is, naturally through people's trends, is rather, Paul's ambition was to introduce me to the school, to introduce grilling and to make salads and use chefing skills, and that's great. But I think and that shows Paul's passion actually, because actually we want to eat healthier, and also we want to give people variations, and that's what we do there. And one thing I've noticed over the last I think I've been doing it now 6 years there, but the amount of people now that make fish cakes all the time now, the amount of people now make their own tartar sauce. The amount of people that make salads, the amount of people now who grill fish as an option is changed. So rather than offering a kebab, etc., or curry and rice, people are now offering grilled
more
fish,
seafood,
and that's got to be a plus.
I think the common misconception is that doing a homemade fish cake would take hours and hours and hours. And I say to people that try our fish cake mix, 1 minute, you can do it with our fish cake mix. Takes you 20. Well, I think one of our customers did a competition, not a competition, but he told me it took one of his staff members 24 minutes from start to finish while they're pottering about and doing something else. And you think that's not a long time. No. Like, obviously, you've got to let the mix cool down afterwards. You're not going to want to mold hot fish cakes, but it's not hard. Like, and it's profit building, isn't it? It's profit.
Well,
so
you got to. This is like people are not. Anybody who's not making their own fish cakes have got to wake up. Now, you created a product that makes it easier for those guys and makes it a lot quicker. But at least those guys, even with that, they can do their smash, their mash munchie, whatever product they want to use. That, for me, that's halfway. That still means you're putting in good fish, you're using a potato protein and the seasoning, etc., etc. But it's halfway. You're still making them, and they're still going to taste a lot better than those processed ones.
It's like Mark Pachu says. Mark Pachu says, profits made when you're closed and sales are made when you're open.
Yeah.
And if people just make a bit of effort to do that, and I know they're busy, everyone's busy, but I think that's where the fish and chip industry can catch up with the restaurant industry.
Absolutely, yeah. And have a USP.
Yeah.
I always say to the people at the frying school is, if we got 10 fish and chip shops in our vicinity, if you all do the same thing, as a customer, you give me 10 opportunities. You do one thing different, and that's what I like.
Yeah.
I have no choice. I have to come to you.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to open yourself up.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to start looking at your business.
Of course.
And also, I'd probably like to say as well is the industry has to wake up as well still, really as well, because anyone selling fish and chips at $4.95, $5.95, they have to look at themselves as well. Because we talk about rising fish prices, we talk about the fish going up. The fish is still wild. We can't do fish and chips at $4.95. There's got to be a reason why you're doing fish at $4.95. You're either joining lots of little bits, or you're giving people a very small portion, or you're doing something else.
Yeah.
But if you cost that fish out, and I would say the proper portion is around about 200 grams, you can't sell fish and chips at that price. And I think the industry has to wake up and say we're not about cheap food. Fish and chips shouldn't be about cheap food. It should be quality and consistency, charging what is the price in order to make your business work.
And I think my answer to that is I agree to some degree, and I think there is more to it. And I think that across the country you've got differing portion sizes, different prices, and I think maybe we need some homogenization there. It needs to all sort of like come into one a bit, and everyone starts maybe singing off the same hymn sheet, so for example, if we agree that there's 3 portion sizes of fish, and then roughly everyone will try to work to that size and price.
Absolutely, because it doesn't matter where we are in the country, the fish is still cost us the same money. So somewhere along the line, if we're so much different in the prices, then somewhere along the line we're cutting corners. Either one's charging too much and one's cutting a corner.
If you're not cutting corners, someone's losing money. They're not making the good margin.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of work for
But from that, we're almost giving a bad impression for the industry, because we're charging something that should be charged more, devaluing it. And actually, to be honest, in Bath, there's a very good or very well-known independent burger takeaway in Bath, and they're $9.50 for a burger and fries. So I think of that in my head. I think if they're $9.50 for a burger and fries, and the portion of fries you get, as you know, in those little bags just like McDonald's and all that, if they're $9.50 for burger and fries, the question is, if we're doing a 200 gram piece of fish at $5.95, $6.95, are we too cheap?
I think one saying I've heard said in our industry is that if fish and chips were invented 30 years ago, it wouldn't be a problem. But because it's been around for as long as it has and been through, the wars, and it's a staple product as such, it's almost been devalued to some degree. And I think historically, the ingredients were cheap.
Yeah,
and I think that's probably snuck up on everybody a few times over the years. And
well, I think with ingredients cheap, but they're not cheap anymore.
Yeah, no, of course.
And actually, I believe is we've got to do quality. You have to do quality, and we want sustainability. We want MSC cod, all that. All those things we just talked about. But there's a price for everything. We also remember the government puts 20% on it.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's the other thing. Consumers don't realise that. And I think everyone should shout from the rooftops that is what's happening at the moment. Well, it's not for the moment, forever. So.
I think people think that we put 20% on restaurant, but there's no VAT. They think there's VAT in restaurant, but there's no VAT in takeaways.
There is confusion.
But there is.
There. Yeah,
there is. Yeah. And so, I think as an industry, we have to realise we have to say we use a quality product, and therefore quality does cost some money. And I think you're right. We have to have a thing, so we're not decepting people on
exactly.
or customers.
Yeah,
we talked about earlier, we closed down the takeaway.
Yes, that's right.
But we are opening. We just bought one.
Yeah,
So
it's at the bottom of my notes.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. So tell us a little bit about what the future holds. That was my question. What does the future hold for the Scallop Shell? So, actually, before we go on to the future, because presently you also have a mobile unit as well, don't you?
Yeah.
So you've been doing weddings and events, and so tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you we're just about to purchase a fish and chip takeaway in a very good area, and I always said, obviously it hurt when we closed the takeaway down. As I said earlier, we got some messages that people said they understood. To be honest, I got some quite graphic. Report, trying to think the word of feedback from some customers, and which was horrible. In reflect was horrible. I mean, some were saying, "I hope you bust within a year," and all these sort of things.
I suppose they felt invested in the fact that they enjoyed your food, and they probably saw it as a snobby move, maybe.
Well, absolutely, I think some did, and actually, but I looked at it again. I try and look at negative as positive, and I looked at that and thought, I've upset people. So I always said that if the right opportunity came up, we would do it. Mm-hmm. But the right opportunity had to come up, and also we had to recover because, like I said, we were skinned. So lucky enough, the restaurant's doing very, very well, and we've managed to regain ourselves. And then the opportunity, the site, one of the sites that I would love to take on, came available.
Oh wow!
Incidentally, actually, it went into receivership.
Oh, okay.
And actually, what we just talked about there, I think it's a good thing. I have no sympathy for the guy who went into administration, because when I walked in that fish and chip shop, it was absolutely disgusting. Mm-hmm. And you stick to the floor where it was so dirty in there. And the quality of food he was serving was unbelievable. Bad. And we don't need people like that in our industry because they don't do any good for our industry at all. So I'm actually really pleased, not only am I opening a takeaway for the people that we let down, and also for the people that that missed us, but also we've got a poor operator out of our industry, and that's the right thing. Harsh, but that's the right thing. But we're opening that. We should be hopefully opening by the end of August. We'll be open, and I'm really, really excited about opening that takeaway back up. We also do a van as well. We've took a Scallop Shell van, invested a lot of money in the van. And we mainly concentrate on weddings and events and birthday parties. We do some festivals, but we're a little bit careful what festivals we do because because of the risk element in that. But all the time, these are extensions of my beliefs and my restaurant. For me, we have the restaurant. And those of you that's been here, hopefully you had a really enjoyable dinner here, and hopefully it was inspirational and all that, because like any restaurant, we don't always get it right, and you get problems every day in restaurants, as you know, because you're always trying to get excellence. But whatever we do has to become an extension of the restaurant. So the van is an extension of our restaurant, but it's on the road. And the fish and chip shop will be an extension of our restaurant, but to take the food home. And so I'm really excited about that.
Like you say, hopefully you can reach out to those people that were pretty upset, and they'll understand that you did it for the right reasons. But again, it will take time to build that one up, won't it?
I think it'll take time. I mean, the really lovely thing is I lost my son.
Clarify that.
Okay, sorry, I didn't lose my son, but my son son worked for me when I was 15.
Of course.
And then one day he was, to be honest, it was great working with him. And I think when he was 21, he came to me and said, "Dad, I want to move on. I want to go and be a chef, and I want to learn why we do things and understand cooking." So he went off for 4 years. I always knew in my head, though, even though I was sad for him to go, because I don't treat him like a son at work. I treat him like an employee. But when he went, it was hard. It was a dent, because he's so passionate as well. And so he went off and done his trade, and he worked for Mitch. And then he went off and worked in London with a fantastic chef in London, and then he worked for Marco in Singapore. And he's just come back, and he's a partner in the new takeaway, and he's going to be running the takeaway as his business. But we work together naturally. I love it, and I'm excited about it, and I want to help him as much as I can. But he's got drive, he's got ambition. He wants to become the best fish and chip takeaway in the country. You know, we want to go in for the awards. He's got some fantastic ideas. He's learned so much about classical cookery, and we're going to bring a bit of English classic cookery into this takeaway as well.
Fantastic.
So it's a little bit more. We're going to be doing a little bit more than we did when we opened it at the Scallop Shell. And I think he's you know, he'll make mistakes.
Yeah,
that's all part of learning.
Yeah, he's only
but
human.
I think he's going to create something special there. And I think the people of Bath are in for a real treat.
I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll have to come back down and have a little play. Definitely
so.
Well, Garry, thank you for your time, mate. And I better let you go because everyone's probably gagging to get some work done. Actually, they're probably not. They're probably just standing there thinking about this. But you know, thanks for this, and we'll probably get this out in a week or two.
Yeah, fantastic.
All
Stel,
right,
it's been a pleasure. It's always good to see you. Love it when you come down, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Look after yourself. See you again soon.
See you, mate.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to episode 16 with Garry Rosser from the Scallop Shell in Bath. As always, I'd love your feedback, but be sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, where I can regularly update you all. Thanks, everyone.